Good evening and welcome everybody to this extraordinary Cabinet meeting, or meeting of Cabinet, which has been convened to facilitate the efficient dispatch of business before the summer break. Just as you know, we live stream our council meetings and our Cabinet meetings to YouTube, and they're recorded for training purposes. What I need to say, well, we haven't got any public present, but I will say it anyway. If you make a representation to the meeting, you are consenting to the use of recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. And there is no fire alarm test expected, so if it does go off, we all need to leave immediately. I have apologies from Councillor Horwood. Are there any members' declarations of interest for this meeting? See a show of hands. So there are nobody's put their any declaration of interest forward.
Sorry, I was struggling to log on. I'm panicking. I took my hand up. Sorry.
We'll move on therefore to the minutes of the last meeting that was held on the 11th of July. Those won't be taken here because they've not been finalised in time for that, so that will come back to the minutes to the September meeting. We don't have any member questions or public questions or petitions. There's nothing referred from council or overview scrutiny or any other committee. And that takes us on to the reports section. The first report for tonight is the is the local development scheme for 2023, which is a report of myself, the leader. The local planning authorities are required by law to prepare, publish and maintain a local development scheme, setting out the timetable for preparing statutory development plan documents, which form our local plan. This will deliver Cheltenham, Gloucester and Tewkesbury strategic and local plans. And in simple terms, what this means, this will draw together 4 core elements within a single examination. And collectively, love it or hate it, I hate acronyms personally, but it becomes the CGTSLP. So we've done it alphabetically. And that will be made up of the strategic plan policies, incorporating any generic policies that are relevant across Cheltenham, Gloucester and Tewkesbury administrative areas. So we will have Cheltenham local plan policies, Gloucester local plan policies and Tewkesbury local plan policies. And there will be an updated partnership agreement coming forward, which will provide the safeguards that sets out the terms and conditions for the operation of the partnership. And this would include a clear protocol that individual districts would not seek to fetter the discretion of the other district authorities in the drafting of their local plans and policies. The Council's current LDS was adopted in 2022 and is in need of updating. And there's a number of reasons for that. Cheltenham's local plan policies are directly linked to the overall allocation figures relating to our housing, employment and retail. And these are out of date. Of particular relevance are the housing numbers. And in regard to this, we are in the position that Cheltenham does not have an up-to-date plan in regards to housing delivery. We recently had a planning review from the LGA that gave very strong recommendations which emphasised the value of joint working and the importance of making progress on plan making. And it had very specific regard that we should pay to plan making. The clear message was do not delay. Plan making, as we all know, is resource hungry in respect of both officers, consultancy time and costs to facilitate this. Public consultation and examination in public is not something that is done without quite a financial impact. But the approach that's now been set out via the local development scheme has sought to think creatively about how we manage the financial costs of plan making in the context of local authority budgets and an impact on wider financial demands to support more predictable and consistent spend and the flattening out of our spend on these. The build efficiency and effectiveness in preparing the evidence base is required to meet. We have to do that to meet our statutory obligations. it will help us facilitate the staff recruitment and retention as well. And we all know how difficult it is to recruit planners into local, into the public sector. It will help as well develop the specialisms, because it will enhance the depth across those three authorities by less, and what that will do is less reliance on commissioning of consultants, because we will have a better skills base. We'll be able to respond robustly to government and the changes and uncertainty that keep coming left field from them. I think I've had 2 today on housing of one form or another. What has been reinforced across all of those, the leadership conversations that I've had, that's led to this LDS review, that the thing that was absolutely key to all of us is that sovereignty of decision making is critical to all 3 of our councils. And this is being embodied in our governance and the approach. And members can see in the diagram that's within this Cabinet report that this has been clearly illustrated. I think I'd just like, before inviting any questions, I'd like to say that the world is not perfect. I wish it was. And what we have to do is we need to work within the realms of what is best for our residents, communities and our town. I think one of my members gave me a quote saying, the perfect is sometimes the enemy of the good. I welcome any questions that anybody's got or comments that they'd like to make. Victoria?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I totally appreciate the need for speed with regards to the local development plan, and also appreciate the cost savings through resource efficiencies, and I'm looking forward to continued collaborative working with the other districts, that we as a town are able to maintain our highest standards around various planning sort of areas. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I appreciate how much work has gone into this report and how important it is, but I'd like to say, if we do it this way, we're better placed to lead the whole process. Our SPDs and a whole host of other documents and policies are already exist. So the other 2 authorities aren't as advanced as we are, so we can lead on this. And you know how important it is for me that Cheltenham leads on things when Gloucester and Tewkesbury are concerned. So I think this is the best way to go, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I just personally want to put on record my thanks for your incredible hard work on this project. Having sat in on some of the committees that you now sit on, having returned to work, you have incredible guts, and I wouldn't want to be on the other side of the table from you. I think it's been a really exciting process, and I'm grateful for the real creative thinking and can-do attitude that authorities across Gloucestershire have managed to put on the table to meet some of these really tough central government deadlines. I'd also like to thank the officers, Tracy and Gareth in particular, for really incredible work on this. They have made the impossible possible on tough timelines with very few staff. I'm actually really excited about this as an opportunity to raise standards across the board and actually to work together as authorities who share a land boundary. Climate change in particular does not respect local authority boundaries, and I welcome any opportunity for us to work together more effectively, to find ways of aligning our policy positions, and actually to protect the planet more effectively by understanding what's going on in all of our authorities and setting a high bar across the board. So thank you, Leader.
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Leader. Not with my finance hat on, clearly I do like an efficiency saving. I'm not going to say no to that. But actually, when it comes to policy making, efficient policy making will undoubtedly help in providing those planning decisions we need, and that's why I'm really supportive of this approach. I'm equally supportive of it because I think my colleagues have mentioned already, actually, we can lead the way. I know that previous members, or actually Member of Parliament, actually designed the local green space policy, which is there now in the NPPF. And that's led the way in terms of local green space. You know, our SPD, hopefully that will lead the way from Cheltenham across to Gloucester and Tewkesbury. So actually it gives us a great opportunity to take what we hold dear and spread that farther than just our boundaries. And if not, then we'll have them within our boundaries, clearly. So yeah, I'm all for collaborative working, but hopefully our specialness that we enjoy around Cheltenham will spill over into neighbouring districts. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Leader. I think when you look at the state of planning legislation and the planning system across the country, it's fair to say if we were going to start, we wouldn't start from here if we were starting again. And that, you know, those problems were set out earlier in the week, weren't they, by Michael Gove, the Levelling Up Secretary. Now, locally, of course, Cheltenham has traditionally led the way on really innovative planning solutions, and I think this document that we see before us today shows that we have the potential to work with partners collaboratively to do that again and take forward some of those high standards that we've already set. High standards on protecting local green space, high standards on environmental requirements that we're setting for developers, which are already showing us that in Cheltenham we can achieve higher results. We can have private developers coming forward with net zero housing. We can have our own council houses built to really high environmental standards. And those standards that we've set locally, I think, can feed into this document, as is so ably demonstrated by the document that's been put together by officers and that the leader presents today. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge that while we accept this today, our partners are going to take a lead from us, I think, and we can work with them collaboratively to make sure that Cheltenham shows the way and that Tewkesbury and Gloucester will work with us on this, and we will work with them in a collaborative spirit to make sure that the whole of that half of the county achieves much more than we have done in the past in our strategic planning. And Cheltenham's high standards, I'm sure, will be welcomed by others, and I know that as this development scheme moves forward, there will be so much more that we can all achieve by working in really deep partnership with Gloucester and Tewkesbury. So I'm pleased to support this report today. And I hope that those who are watching at a national level are impressed by the innovative approach that Cheltenham is taking, and that they will take a lead from what we're saying. Just as Michael Gove did earlier in the week when he presented a report which said that we need to regenerate town centres with more housing. A couple of weeks after, Cheltenham Borough Council had said exactly that.
Councillor Dobie.
I also welcome this recommendation. I think Cheltenham does have the chance to lead in many ways. And I'd like to mention the Gloucestershire Resources and Waste Partnership, which coordinates the county strategy on waste and recycling. And this end is promoted by the fact that now Ubico serves every district in the whole county. And I'm very pleased to report that I've recently been elected as the chair of the Gloucestershire Resources and Waste Partnership. So I'm very keen that in many ways we can lead on important initiatives, notably green initiatives, with our immediately neighbouring districts, particularly Tewkesbury and Gloucester. And I believe this is of a piece with what is being set out here before us in this recommendation, and I fully support it.
Councillor Clucas.
Thank you, Leader. Just to say thank you for the document. One of the things that struck me about the whole paper is paragraph 3.9, which actually speaks about the importance of community involvement in the preparation of what we are doing for the future. And that's why I think your mention, Councillor Wilkinson, of local green space is so important, because this is valuable to communities. And I'm pleased to see that within this document, environment is also mentioned, because local communities value what they have. And I look forward to seeing how, for example, we can marry in future editions of this, the Florence Convention, which gives communities the right to have their say and to be listened to in relation to new building developments that are being done. I look forward to that. And can I just say, Leader, thank you for the work that you have put in on this, because reading this, it ain't easy. So thank you very much for what you've done.
Thank you, Councillor Clucas. I just want to come back on something that was I found quite interesting is that, as Councillor Wilkinson said, you know, the government flipped and said more building in the town centres above shops. But when you actually look at the detail of what they're saying in that, is that if they're unused buildings, then councils must take over those buildings. But because there's never any detail, you don't get the minutiae detail from government that says, well, how are you going to finance that? Because you've said we can't borrow here to do that. So I don't quite know how we're going to compulsory purchase buildings that are probably owned by investment pension companies. So I think there's a degree of irony in that. But then on the other hand, because of, again, the comment that you made, Councillor Wilkinson, is that actually what we've got is it is quite innovative, and whilst the government, DLUC, have not given us any money or hard cash to help, what they have said is that they're really interested in what we're doing, and they will give us they will supply a person, as it were, to work with our 3 strategic teams, which is, you know, I'll take that, thank you very much. As I say, it's not a perfect world. And thank you for everybody's comments today. So can I see a show of hands to say that we approve this? Thank you very much. That leads us on to the second agenda item today, which is the update from Councillor Wilkinson on the sports strategy.
Thank you, Leader. Well, this report and the appended document is the first stage of our strategy. It's setting our vision, and it's involved really deep consultation with stakeholder groups. And for that, I'd like to thank Richard Gibson, who sits at the back of the room. It's not an easy job bringing together so many stakeholders, but dozens and dozens of people came to this council and took part in some really important workshops in which everyone's voice was heard from different backgrounds and different communities and different stakeholder groups, and it was a pleasure to be part of that, so thank you, Richard. So I'd like to start by a thank you to all of those people who came to us and told us at that early stage what it was that we need in Cheltenham as the first stage, and feeds into this document today. Stage 2 will follow later, and that'll include a technical assessment of sports pitch needs and wider consultation again. But why are we doing this? Well, physical activity is so important, not just for physical health, but for mental health too. It helps people feel happier. It's good for businesses as well because it boosts productivity. It stops people taking days off sick, and it makes people more productive while they're at work. It prevents ill health in both the short and the long term, protecting the NHS. And the statistics from Cheltenham show why we need this strategy. More than 1 in 5 people here is classed as inactive. That's below the national level, so that's a good start where 1 in 4 people, more than 1 in 4 people are classed as inactive at national level. So we're outperforming the national level, but that doesn't mean that we ought to give up and not do this strategy. And when we drill down into the figures further, we see that inactivity is higher among those in low-income communities, and that lowers the health outcomes for people who are in greater need. And if anything, this strategy must be about access, because people who are disabled and from minority communities are also more likely to suffer from obesity as a result of inactivity. So, we're relatively well served in Cheltenham when it comes to sports facilities and municipal sports facilities. If we look at all the private gyms and health clubs and the private schools that we have with large facilities, we're relatively well served compared to many other places. And our municipal facilities like Leisure and the Prince of Wales Stadium are there too, albeit as the report picks up. And we need to work out what it is that we're doing to augment those services in future. And the next stage of the strategy will clarify how we're going to augment that offer, and it will involve, as I said, wider consultation. So I commend this report to the Cabinet. I think it is the right thing to be doing. Tackling some of those really ingrained health problems that we have as a result of inactivity is something that we must do. This is a long-term challenge that the nation has, and it's a long-term challenge that Cheltenham has if we're going to become a more sustainable community that is healthier, happier, and more productive, and where our NHS thrives into the future too. So happy to take any questions, and if they're extremely technical, I know Richard is at the back of the room and will fill us in on those details. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to note, having read this report, which firstly is really nice, it's a really beautifully designed report, so thank you, Richard. I really enjoyed reading it. But one thing I'm particularly really glad about in this particular report is how exercise and activity is portrayed in so many different ways. It's often really easy talking about exercise and sports strategies to have this kind of picture of what that kind of activity looks like and who does that kind of activity and when it's done. And this report's really good at reflecting just the incredible range of different ways that people get active and get involved in sport in Cheltenham. And I think that's so important for the strategy. It's not enough to have a stereotypical view. It's got to be something that everybody can be part of in one way or another. And I think that's a real credit to the report and credit to the Cabinet Member and his officers.
Councillor Collins?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just want to say I think that Councillor Wilkinson hit the nail on the head in so many ways. In fact, hit the nail on the head repeatedly, perhaps I should say. That it's just not about sport, taking part, meeting up with your mates. There are so many other things that you benefit from being part of a sports community, whether it's a club or whether you do it on your own. There are so many benefits, and I would challenge anyone to list out all the benefits that you get from being an active sports person. And I'd like to say, on page, well, it says page 41 on my paper, it's page 7 of the report, that picture of Cheltenham Tigers playing a game. I was at that game, and I think I might be in the background of the photograph, actually. But thanks.
Councillor Atherstone?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'd just like to say that I know that it was a priority for us and great work, Councillor Wilkinson and Officers Richard, for putting together this draft physical activity and sports strategy together. I know that across Cheltenham, we've got a really, really great sporting culture, and from everything from gymnastics and skittles through to football and horse racing and everything else in between. And the sort of importance also with regards to team sports, with regards to the development of children and mental health and well-being and being able to work together collaboratively. And then from sort of like dog walking and going out for runs, as Councillor Wilkinson mentions, the benefit that can be gained, not just physically but mentally is brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the final physical activity and sports strategy produced.
Any other member? I think one of the things for me is that this is the start of a journey. You know, I mean, of what is the art of possible. You know, I remember when Leisure At actually first opened, and we thought it was the all singing, all dancing. So that was back in 1972, 73, thereabouts, I think it was. And I mean, it was an amazing facility, and we're still very lucky to have it, but it's, you know, everything, time moves on. So it's actually, is that the right place? Is that the right building, the right facility for now and for the future of our young people? We have lots of things, don't we, that happen at the racecourse that actually are, again, in that very big space, not on the racecourse itself, but in the side fields where they have lots of events. The number of times I've seen actually families doing activities, they have the blow up all sorts of obstacle courses that they have, which I think look great. And actually, my grandchildren took part in a mud run in Southampton this weekend to raise money for cancer research. Absolutely plastered in mud, but it was called a mud run. But those sorts of activities that actually become family activities as well, is that do we have the right spaces? But we can't do any of that until we've got this policy in place that then starts to formulate where we go next. So thank you, Councillor Wilkinson, for driving this. Can I see, just, I mean, this isn't really a decision for us to make today, but is everybody happy to support this document? Thank you. That's the end of the reports for there's an appointment of a supplier for delivery of fixed power supply. And that's, sorry, Councillor Jeffries, I nearly forgot it, is it's your report as Finance and Assets Lead. If I hand over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Colleagues will remember, I'm sure, the successful ice rink we had in Imperial Gardens in 2021. This Cabinet also approved a recommendation to deliver fixed power infrastructure for future events in the Imperial Gardens. Obviously, this is with the aim of providing power that is more sustainable, rather than the temporary solutions that we've had, less noise pollution and less air pollution. Since then, there's been work that's been ongoing to understand the technical and practical issues involved in doing this. This includes understanding the capacity within the electrical grid network, topography of the area, tree root protection and listed building consents. And I could carry on with my list, but I won't. But extensive, as you can imagine. Now, we don't have the necessary expertise within the Council in order to produce a viable specification for this new infrastructure. We need to engage a professional team of engineers. The team have been liaising with a number of providers in the market in order to draw up a specification for the service we need. Now, given the timelines this project needs to be delivered by, the option of a full tender process is not advised due to the length of time it would likely take. Likewise, the option of our appointing our preferred supplier through a framework has been explored, but no framework has been identified which would allow delivery within our project timescales. So it is recommended that a waiver is granted to appoint our preferred supplier to manage the full delivery of the project. Now, my fellow Cabinet members should note that following design, specification and procurement process to appoint a supplier for any build work, there will be a full business case brought back for approval, obviously when we've confirmed the cost of the infrastructure upgrade. So I won't have to take any questions, Leader. Thank you.
Councillor Atherstone.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm extremely supportive of this report, so thank you, Councillor Jeffries. You do mention the ice rink and the importance, trying to sort of reduce the need for generators, but also there are plenty of other activities that take place in the parks, whether that's Cheltenham festivals or other organisations. So I think this is going to be a great benefit for our town. So hoping it all goes to plan. Thanks.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Peter. This is a good report. I'm really pleased this is coming forward. The point of this, of course, is to make sure that when we have events there, we don't have diesel generators chugging out fumes near people's homes and into our local environment. And the point is made very ably at 1.3 here, which is increasing the fixed power supply capacity in the town centre will reduce the reliance of events and festivals on temporary power, which often use fossil fuels. And that is a good enough reason in itself to go ahead with this, and I'm sure that residents of Imperial Square will agree.
Councillor Doby.
Yeah, I do have a question, if I may. As the Cabinet Member for Parks and Gardens, I'm absolutely support this in Imperial Square, and I know the importance of our parks, Imperial Gardens and also Montpellier Gardens, in particular to the festivals that we hold in our town. Councillor Jeffries, is it the intention that beyond Imperial Square, this initiative, which I trust will be a successful way of, as my colleague has said, to avoid polluting, and indeed, as you said, air polluting and also noise polluting use of generators of a diesel kind. Is it the intention that this might be extended to perhaps to Montpellier Gardens in due course if it proves feasible in Imperial Gardens?
Sorry, Councillor Jeffries.
I think that's the aspiration. Clearly, it was a question of choices at the moment. Obviously, our financial position leaves us with quite heavy restrictions, but certainly an aspiration. I know that colleagues have talked about it before. So I think we can learn. The learning from this project will undoubtedly help for that aspiration moving forward.
Is there any other member? Councillor Collins.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I think colleagues have said more or less everything I was going to say, especially that last part by Councillor Doby. But I'm really excited by this because we all know how important everything that goes on within our parks and gardens is to the town, to the well-being of our residents and, of course, our visitors, and how it adds to the economy of our town as well. So just look at the vibrancy in those parks and gardens when we've got festivals on. Look at the happy faces going in and out of the ice skating rink. I'm really pleased that it's going to be coming back in a sustainable way, but there's no way on earth that you're going to catch me in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. If there's no other member, can I see a show of hands in support of this report? Thank you all. That actually is the end of our reports now. It's just the 3 reports. I did start off by saying 2. What I'm now moving on to is, has any member got any briefing? If I start, Councillor Wilkinson, anything? Councillor Clucas?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm going to find this really rather sad, and I hope colleagues will forgive me. Some of you may know a Cheltenham head teacher by name Charles Welsh. And Charles Welsh is the executive head teacher of Oakwood and Gardeners Lane. I've had the great privilege to work with that man over the last few years. And it is extremely sad for me to report, Leader, that he is retiring. He will no longer be in that position. But also he is retiring from the work he's done for Cheltenham as chair of our communities partnership and indeed as a huge, huge champion for No Child Left Behind. And I would like, if my colleagues would permit me, formally to thank him through this cabinet for all that he's done, to wish him the very best for the future, and say to him that it is certainly my experience that when you retire, you don't stop. So if he would like to stay involved, we would be delighted to have him. He is a man like no other. He gives, he listens, he cares. He cares about children and their families. And frankly, I wish we had more like him. So thank you for that opportunity, Leader. And I do hope we can formally thank Charles at some point in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Clucas. Councillor Doby, Councillor Atherstone, Councillor Jeffries, Councillor Collins, Councillor Lewis. Thank you, Councillor Clucas, for that information. I was aware that Charles was about to retire, and I remember when, back in 2012, when my husband was mayor, we made the decision to actually launch the mayor's charities in what was then the new Oakwood School. So there was this whole bit around launching the mayor's charities in one of our most deprived areas of the town, in this amazing, beautiful school. It still is a wonderful school. And there was a community room there as well, which actually Charles and David never made to work, but it was the principle behind that. And they were very excited about hosting the mayor's launch of the charities there. So I remember Charles from many, many years ago. I think that takes us on now to the Cabinet member decisions, of which there were 2 this time. The first one was the Cabinet member for Housing.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I made a decision to appoint a consultant for to lead and advise on the redevelopment of the former Monkscroft school site.
Thank you. And our second decision was the Cabinet member for Climate Emergency.
Thank you, Leader. We made the very exciting decision to offer our second significant Green New Deal loan to Cheltenham Town Football Club, and we will be giving a very exciting press launch soon to follow. So I'm really excited about this project.
Thank you to all members. There aren't any other items that I determined to be urgent. or that requires a decision. So, and therefore